My brother was a photographer, Sandy. He was sort of a photographer before I was, and he had taken a class at Bellevue Community College at the time. It's now Bellevue College, and he recommended I take this class from a guy named John Wesley. And John, John Wesley, he's sort of a guy I think about all the time. I'm not even sure if he's still alive anymore, but John taught at Bellevue College, and our very first day of class, he walked in, and it was almost like Jesus had walked in, because he had long hair, big beard, and he was wearing a robe kind of thing. He really did look like Jesus. And but he was a super nice guy, very personable. And he would do stuff like he'd send you out on a photo shoot, and he would say, put a piece of tape over your viewfinder. He says, I don't even want you looking into your viewfinder. Just go out and just shoot stuff. And then let's come back into the darkroom and see what we can do with what you got. I remember that particular assignment because I ended up with some really cool stuff without even looking through the viewfinder. And then you would go into the darkroom, and he was a big darkroom guy. We all shot all black and white. And so Sandy and I ended up getting our own darkroom, and shot a lot of black and white stuff, did our own developing. My parents didn't care for it too much because we took over one of the bathrooms in the house, and it smelled terrible, but they got over it, and they were always pretty supportive of that. And so then I got really interested and Sandy sold me one of his cameras, the old Canon FTB, which is still a pretty sought after 35 millimeter camera. I always sort of started out with nature. Mostly I use macro lenses. A lot of times I would just take a macro lens and I'd go out in the backyard, and you can find a piece of lawn in your backyard about that wide, and you could be there for hours shooting blades of grass, spiders, anything you can, ladybug, anything you could find with a close-up macro lens. It just takes you to a whole nother world. There's a lot of factors that come in with macro photography, and I don't feel like I ever really mastered it. I don't think anybody ever masters photography, unless you're maybe Ansel Adams or something, but I'm somewhat of a purist when it comes to like macro photography. I mean, if you take a good picture, you really shouldn't have to do anything to it. Maybe crop it. No, I don't have one. I really don't have one. Matter of fact, when you asked me to send you some photos the other day, I thought, oh yeah, I could do that. I would do like photo contests and things like that. So I'd make a folder for the 09 photo contest or the 2012 photo contest, or my rodeo pictures, and I'd pick the ones I liked when I looked at them, and I'd save them. So I started going through some of those, and I must have, I don't know, 20, 30,000 photos. We'd spend like hours trying to get a fish jumping out of the water. It's kind of a hard thing to catch, when you're fishing, you catch a fish, it jumps, and you can't typically, grab your camera. By the time you would even grab the camera, the thing would be in the water. So you would have to anticipate a fish jumping. We were catching silver salmon up in Alaska, up at this place called Quinnahock, and every single salmon we would catch would zip straight out of the middle of the river, straight out of the water. And so we knew where it was going to do it. We knew where it was going to happen. We were able to set our exposures and our focus and everything. And even with that, it took about 6 hours to finally get a shot that I was sort of proud of. And unfortunately, you don't really know when you're shooting out in the field. You can look at previews, but you don't really quite know, did I really get the focus right on that? Because frankly, if the focus is not right, it's garbage. You can't use it. It's usually the eyeballs. You really want the eyeballs of your subject. So if you're shooting a bird or a snake or whatever, you really got to get the eyeballs in focus. Without that, it's kind of a garbage picture. I'd say use your imagination, I guess, is kind of what I would say. Don't just put your subject in the middle of your viewfinder and take a picture of it. I was taught early on there's a law, the law of fours or something like that, where you take a frame and then you draw a checkerboard on it, like a tic-tac-toe board, and each where those intersecting lines are where you want to put your subject. never put it in the middle. Now there's times you want it in the middle, especially on sports and things like that, and really pay attention to what's going on other than just your subject. You just got to take a lot of pictures, thousands. I'll shoot maybe 2,000 to 3,000 pictures at one rodeo. John Wesley told me one time, he says, carry a water bottle around with you, a little spray water bottle. And you get out in the field, you see something, because I would shoot a lot of spider webs in the mornings when there's dew on them. He goes, you know, you don't have to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to get that dew. You can get that dew at noon. Spray bottle, spray your subject with a light mist, and then he says you'll be amazed at what you're you know. And so I would be like, take a picture of a spider web, maybe with a spider in it, and then you spray it, and then you photograph it again, and the difference was amazing. You get these little stars off where each little droplet was. And he says, you know, a lot of people spend a lot of money on filters. He says, I'd be out in the field somewhere and I would just grab a leaf and I'd take the hole, make a little hole in the leaf, and I'd pull that leaf right up to my camera, which makes it out of focus, and everything is green except for this little window in the middle. And he says, if you want to get a kind of a weird, cheap effect, you know, with your fixture, use a leaf. Little weird tricks like that some of these people use. It's hard. It takes a lot of kind of good equipment to do that. And if you really want to do stuff, you have to have a decent telescope that's a tracking telescope, because the stars don't, you know, if you just open up your lens at the sky and you let it go for 10, 15, 20 minutes, you'll get streaks, you know, where the stars are moving. Everything rotates around the northern star. I don't know if you knew that or not, but when you see the Little Dipper, the tail of the Little Dipper is the North Star. And if you aim your camera at the North Star, everything rotates around that North Star. And you get some really cool effects doing that. I don't know, I like to get kind of close if I can, but typically it's not like I'm usually doing it at home. So there's a lightning storm. So I'll find a place outside that's undercover, because it's oftentimes raining. And then you gotta, you really gotta guess at where the lightning is gonna be. So if you see a lot of strikes going into one particular area, you aim your camera towards that area, and then you open up your lens and you just leave it open. And then when you see a lightning strike, you close it. And then you open it again, wait for another lightning strike, and you close it. And get some pretty cool shots doing that. The only time you can really get a good swallow that I've found is when they drink or eat a bug off water. They'll almost come to a complete stop in flight, and they'll flap their wings, and then they'll reach down and they'll, same with bats. Bats are very difficult to photograph, but a lot of times right at dusk, if they're picking a bug off the water, is where I've gotten a few decent shots. You know, but yeah, you have to anticipate where they're going to be, and typically, like especially with bats, it's usually dark because they don't come out during the day. You know, they're kind of a nocturnal animal. And then there's people that use certain strobe lights and things like that. You can get some pretty cool bat shots. I tried it; it didn't work. I've never got a good bat shot, except for in my house one time. We were watching TV. We lived up at Goat Peak, and we were at a log cabin, and I kind of looked over to my stepson. And there was something over his shoulder on this log that was down there. And then I realized it was a bat, and it was just crawling up this log. And so I got my camera before it started flying, and got a close-up picture of it. And as I got close to it, it showed me its teeth. We take these swamp tours, which you'd think would be kind of gross, but swamp tours in Georgia are very cool. Swamps themselves, you think of them as dirty, smelly. They're not. They're really amazing ecosystems. And the lilies that are down there, and then of course the alligators themselves. When you get a picture of an alligator, I have this one that has it's got like 6 spiders on it, and then like 4 or 5 little baby frogs that are just kind of lined up on this one alligator, and he doesn't care. Well, I try to be positive. I think being positive in life, being nice to people, wanting to be around people. I like people. I love having garage sales because I people come in, meet them, talk to them, just enjoy that. Frank Burns in MASH once said, I don't know what the context was, but he goes, it's nice to be nice to the nice, is what he said. And for some reason, I've kind of kept that philosophy in my head for years and years, because it is. When I was in Boeing for 35 years, I was in customer support. That was my job, was to make people happy, make them feel good about, making mistakes. People will be like, they'd ask a question, some people just like roll their eyes. It's like, are you serious? You moron, can't you figure that out? My philosophy was to try to make people feel good about having a problem. How can we turn this into a positive, a learning experience or something like that. I spend a lot of time with them. I just don't like them to be negative, be positive. You can be a good loser, but there's a lot of people that just aren't good winners. They got to be dicks about it. And so try to instill that in them, just like, be a good sport, be nice to people, and people be nice to you. Treat people the way you want to be treated.